In 1990, the Excalibur Hotel lowered its drawbridge. It was not just a hotel, it was a $290 million fairy tale castle, where knights and royal feasts welcomed the American middle class. 3 years later, the Luxor Las Vegas rose from the desert floor, a $375 million black glass marvel, with a beam of light that challenged the stars themselves. These were not just hotels. They were the boldest statements on the Las Vegas Strip. But sadly, that dream now reeks of cheap bleach. Walk into the Excalibur Hotel in 2026, and you are greeted by dim hallways and carpets that expired a decade ago. The Luxor beam is still there, but it feels dim and out of place, much like the shaky elevators inside. Thousands of visitors believe MGM Resorts has forgotten these icons due to incompetence, or because they are too busy polishing the Bellagio. But you would be wrong. This decline is not an accident, it is a business model. What if I told you those cracks in the wall and that musty smell are actually a perfect money printing machine? MGM did not forget Luxor. They are executing a ruthless strategy known as managed decay. In this video, we are going to tear apart the financial records to see exactly how the casino giant is quietly bleeding these icons dry. To understand why the current reality leaves such a bitter taste, we need to turn the clock back to the early 90s. It was a time when Las Vegas was going through the biggest identity crisis in its history. The city no longer wanted to be a playground for mobsters or solitary gamblers. The corporations wanted your whole family's wallet, and leading this revolution was Circus Enterprises. Their vision was crazy but audacious: to turn the Las Vegas Strip into a Disneyland for adults and children alike. And the Excalibur Hotel was the opening shot. When it opened its doors in June 1990, the world had never seen anything like it. 4,000 rooms. 4,032 to be exact. Let that number sink in for a moment. At the time, this was the largest hotel in the world. People did not come to Excalibur just to sleep. They came to watch Merlin perform magic, to eat dinner with their hands in medieval arenas, and to get lost in a perfect fantasy. It was an era where creativity mattered more than efficiency on an Excel spreadsheet. But they did not stop there. Just 3 years later, the Luxor Las Vegas rose from the dust. If Excalibur was a fairy tale, the Luxor was an engineering marvel. A 30-story pyramid that was completely hollow, no center columns, just vast open space, and 29 million cubic feet of air-conditioned grandeur. Guests traveled to their rooms in inclinators, elevators that moved diagonally at a 39-degree angle, a luxurious arrogance that no modern chief financial officer would dare approve today. Remember the feeling when you walked in there for the first time, riding a boat on a man-made Nile River, winding around the casino, looking up at the world's largest atrium, and of course, the Luxor Sky Beam, a 42.3 billion candela shaft of light, an unmistakable beacon in the night sky. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, under the management of Circus and later the Mandalay Resort Group. These hotels were nurtured. Profits were reinvested to maintain the theme and keep the experience fresh. Back then, the customer was truly king. Whether you were a factory worker from Ohio or a retired teacher from Florida, when you walked into that lobby, you were treated with the respect due to a guest, not processed as a line of data in a Q3 financial report. They believed that if you built the best, the customers would return. It was an unspoken social contract. You pay the money. We show you the magic. But ironically, that generous investment is exactly what today's executives consider inefficient waste. And that is where the tragedy begins. In 2005, MGM Resorts acquired the Mandalay Resort Group in a $7.9 billion deal. And everything started to change. So what is really happening behind those dusty pyramid walls? To understand this decay, you can't look at it like a tourist. You have to look at it through the eyes of a Wall Street financial analyst. In business terms, there is a concept called a cash cow. And Luxor Las Vegas and Excalibur Hotel are MGM's fattest cash cows. Let me explain this ruthless logic. These buildings were built in the early 90s. On the accounting books, their massive billion-dollar construction costs have been almost fully depreciated after more than 30 years. What does that mean? It means their book value is very low. They no longer carry the burden of construction debt or interest pressure like the shiny towers at City Center. When an asset is fully depreciated, the optimal strategy for profit is not to invest heavily in renovation. The optimal strategy is the harvest strategy. The principle is simple. You minimize capital expenditure on upgrades. You spend only the minimum, essential maintenance, to keep the doors open. Many people mistakenly think MGM spends $0 on these two places. No, they do spend. According to industry analysis and 2025 earnings reports, it is estimated MGM Resorts spends about $25 to $40 million a year on both Luxor and Excalibur. Sounds like a lot, right? But look at the big picture. That number is only about 5 to 7% of the property's revenue. By comparison, the Bellagio gets about $150 million, and City Center gets $200 million in upgrades. The money dripping into Luxor is only enough to replace a few torn carpets or patch a broken elevator. It is not to improve your experience. It is just to stop the building from collapsing. This calculation is evident in MGM Resorts' Q3 2025 report. Net revenue on the Las Vegas Strip fell 7% to $2.1 billion. Worse, EBITDA dropped by 18%. In shareholder meetings, MGM leadership admitted half of this decline came from value assets, referring to Luxor and Excalibur. But here is the scary part. Even with only trickle-down investment, these two hotels still generate about $300 million in profit, EBITDA, per year. Do you see that ratio? Spend $40 million on repairs to make $300 million in profit. That is a margin any CFO would drool over. At this point, the story is no longer about cold numbers. It becomes a slap in the face to people like our generation, those who once considered Excalibur or Luxor the height of attainable luxury. Remember the 90s. Luxor was the symbol of the American dream for the middle class. A working family saved all year to step into that castle, feeling like royalty for a few days. That was the promise of Vegas. Anyone could be rich, if only for a moment. And now you go back there with a $30 room rate, thinking you found a bargain. But what you get is a subtle insult. Musty hallway carpets, elevators shaking like they are about to drop, and exhausted staff. MGM is no longer selling a dream. They are turning your best memories of youth into a cheap hostel for kids to laugh at on TikTok. Mr. Bob from Ohio shared, "I worked hard for 2 years, carefully saving every penny to take my wife to Vegas for our 30th anniversary. But at checkout, the actual bill was double the listed price because of all sorts of ridiculous resort fees." So where does that $300 million profit go? It comes from people like Mr. Bob, from the tips of American workers. But that money doesn't come back to replace the 10-year-old carpet under his feet. That massive cash flow, free cash flow, flows back up to the corporation. It is diverted to fund massive CEO bonuses in New York or to build shiny mega projects in Osaka, Japan. American workers sweat on the strip so Wall Street shareholders can buy new yachts. Luxor is dying slowly to feed MGM's new ambitions. It is a sacrifice planned in advance, a managed decay piece by piece. In the hotel business, there is a term they will never print on a glossy brochure. Managed decay. Let me define it for you. Normally, when something breaks, you fix it. But in the mindset of managed decay, you calculate exactly how broken something can get, how bad it can look, before the customer actually walks away. That is why the carpet at the Excalibur Hotel has that distinct smell of stale cigarette smoke from 20 years ago. It is not that they cannot smell it, it is that they have calculated that this odor sits right at your threshold of tolerance, but the cost of this decay is not just in inanimate objects. It is a direct attack on human dignity. Look at those cold automated check-in kiosks in the lobby. They are not there to make your life faster. They are there to replace the welcoming smile of a receptionist, the person you use to happily tip $20 for their warmth. Now, human connection has been laid off in exchange for software efficiency. Even more painful is the story of the invisible people behind the scenes. Let us talk about Rosa, a housekeeper who has been with Excalibur since opening day. 20 years ago, she cleaned 14 rooms a day and had time to fold towels into swans for your grandkids. Today, with staffing cuts of 7%, Rosa has to clean 18, sometimes 20 rooms in a shift. Her hands tremble with arthritis. Her back aches. But she is not allowed to stop, because every minute she rests is a minute that reduces the corporation's free cash flow. And where does that cash flow go? It does not come back to buy Rosa a lighter cart. It flows straight up to the ivory tower. While the average housekeeper earns about $40,000 a year and has to fight for every penny of health insurance. MGM Resorts CEOs take home compensation packages worth tens of millions. Do the simple math: a CEO earns in 1 hour what Rosa has to scrub floors for 10 years to make. That record-breaking $300 million profit from the Luxor Las Vegas is not a business miracle. It is Rosa's blood and sweat, and your exorbitant resort fees, transferred directly into the pockets of Wall Street shareholders so they can buy back more stock. MGM knows they have the American middle class trapped. They know you cannot afford $600 a night for the Bellagio, so they herd you into these luxury slums. They abuse your loyalty. You come back out of nostalgia for those magical Merlin shows. But MGM responds with dim hallways and terrible service. They are not afraid of losing you, because they know you have nowhere else to go. This is exploitation, disguised as profit optimization. Every time you walk over that dirty carpet without complaining, every time you accept paying a resort fee for a closed pool, you are sending them a signal. Go ahead, we accept being treated like this. So, what future awaits these icons of a bygone era? Will there be a grand renovation to restore Luxor and Excalibur to their golden age glory? The short answer is no. To MGM Resorts, the real value today is not in the faux stone plaster walls or the fading Luxor skybeam. The value lies in the dirt beneath them. Located at the most expensive intersection on the planet, right across from Allegiant Stadium. Essentially, Luxor and Excalibur are now zombie hotels. They are dead in spirit, stripped of service, yet they keep walking to generate revenue. The corporation keeps them on life support for one reason only: to squeeze out every last drop of cash flow before Judgment Day arrives. Someday, maybe in 5 or 10 years, they will blow up the pyramid and the castle. And ironically, that demolition event might be the first time in decades that MGM actually spends money to create a spectacle worth watching at this location, facing the harsh reality of an old money printing machine, awaiting the wrecking ball. Do you really want to go back to witness it? Or would you rather frame that family photo of everyone smiling in front of the Sphinx in 1996 and keep that as the last beautiful memory of a lost Las Vegas? If this video reminded you of a wonderful vacation in 1999, or if you also feel disappointed by the recent changes, please share your story in the comments below. Those memories, not these crumbling buildings, are the true legacy worth preserving. Thank you for listening to the truth, even if it was not comfortable to hear.